Aaron sat quietly in the cockpit of the small Earth exploration ship named Horizon. The endless stars stretched before him like a sea of silver lights. He was young, not more than 25, and filled with the spirit of adventure. Ever since childhood, he had dreamed of exploring other worlds, meeting new beings, and proving that humans were not alone in the universe. Now, after years of training, that dream had become real. The mission had started simply. The Horizon was sent to map the outer edges of the Orion sector. It was supposed to be routine, a journey of recording new stars and scanning for resources. But deep space was never without surprise. On the 12th day of his journey, strange energy waves hit the ship. The systems trembled, alarms rang, and the engine slowed down. Aaron tried to steer, but the ship was caught as if pulled by invisible hands. The stars ahead twisted into strange patterns, and then he saw it. A giant city floated in space, far larger than any human station. It was shaped like a ring of silver towers, glowing with soft blue lights. The city spun gently, and around it drifted smaller ships shaped like wings of glass. Aaron gasped. No human had ever built anything like this. The Horizon shuddered as the energy waves carried it closer. Aaron activated the translator and sent a message. "This is Aaron, pilot of the Earthship Horizon. I come in peace. Please respond." For a moment, silence filled the cabin. Then a voice came through, calm and musical, unlike any sound he had ever heard. "Human vessel, you have entered the domain of the Lumorous Empire. Power down your engines. You will be guided to docking bay 12. Aaron swallowed hard. His heart raced with both fear and wonder. He had dreamed of meeting aliens, but now it was no longer a dream. Carefully, he obeyed the voice and shut down the ship's drive. Strange beams of light touched the horizon, pulling it gently toward the city. When the ship landed, the airlock opened with a hiss. Aaron stepped out, his boots meeting a smooth silver floor. Around him stood tall figures, their skin pale like moonlight with glowing patterns across their arms and faces. Their eyes were bright, like pools of light, and their voices were soft but strong. They wore flowing robes that shimmered as they moved. At the center of the group stood a young woman who caught Aaron's gaze at once. She was tall, elegant, and carried herself with calm strength. Her markings glowed brighter than the others, and her robe was woven with threads of gold. Aaron felt as if the air around her carried a quiet warmth. One of the guards spoke firmly. "You are before Princess Illyra, daughter of the High King of the Lumorous. You will speak with respect." Aaron bowed slightly, nervous but steady. "I am Aaron, from Earth. I mean no harm. My ship was pulled here by accident." Princess Illyra stepped forward. Her voice was gentle, yet each word carried weight. "You come from Earth. I have studied your world in old records. Few of your kind have ever reached this far. Tell me, Aaron, why did you leave your home and travel into the unknown?" Aaron paused. He had many reasons: curiosity, duty, the call of adventure, but in that moment, he spoke simply from the heart. "I wanted to see what lies beyond. To know if we are truly alone or if there are others who share the stars with us." For a moment, silence filled the hall. The aliens exchanged quiet looks, but Illyra's eyes stayed on him. She seemed to measure his words, searching for truth. Then a small smile touched her lips. "You speak with honesty. Many here fear strangers, yet I see no malice in you." The guards shifted uneasily, and one of them whispered to another. Aaron knew he was being judged, and not all in the hall welcomed him. Still, The princess's gaze gave him courage. Illyra turned to the counselors who stood nearby. He has come by chance, not by weapon. We should not treat him as an enemy. Let us learn why the stars brought him here. Her words carried authority, and though some counselors frowned, none dared oppose her openly. Aaron was guided deeper into the city. He walked through tall halls made of crystal and silver, lit by glowing stones that floated in the air. The walls were alive with moving patterns, as if the building itself was breathing. Everywhere he looked, he saw wonders beyond human design. Yet despite the beauty, Aaron felt the weight of eyes on him. Some Lumorous watched with suspicion, their voices low as he passed. He understood. To them, he was a stranger, perhaps even a threat. But one gaze was different. Princess Illyra walked beside him, her steps calm, her expression thoughtful. She asked questions about Earth, about the oceans, the forests, the people who lived under the blue sky. Aaron answered as best he could, painting pictures of his world with simple words. As they walked, a sudden tremor shook the hall. Lights flickered, and a loud alarm echoed. Guards rushed forward, voices filled with worry. A counselor shouted that one of the city's power chambers was failing. If it collapsed, part of the station would break apart. Without thinking, Aaron stepped forward. Take me there. I know about power systems. Maybe I can help. The guards hesitated, but Illyra raised her hand. Bring him. Let us see if his words hold truth. They hurried to a great chamber filled with humming crystals and glowing conduits. Sparks flew, and the structure trembled under pressure. The alien engineers worked frantically, but their tools were failing. Aaron recognized the pattern at once. The overload was similar to problems he had studied in human reactors. Shut down the third conduit, he shouted. The engineers looked confused. Illyra's voice cut through. Do as he says. When the conduit closed, Aaron rushed to the control panel. Using his portable scanner, he rewired the energy flow, channeling the excess into a stabilizer coil. The lights steadied, the tremor stopped, and the alarm faded. For a moment, silence filled the chamber. Then the engineers gasped in relief. Illyra's eyes shone with gratitude. You saved the city, Aaron of Earth. The guards still looked uneasy, but none could deny what he had done. In that moment, the alien city had seen a human not as a stranger, but as someone who could help. Aaron breathed deeply, knowing that this was only the beginning. The next morning, Aaron was summoned to the Grand Council chamber of the Lumorous Empire. The hall was vast, with high arches of silver crystal and a ceiling that shimmered like the night sky. Dozens of nobles and advisors stood in a circle, their glowing markings bright with energy. At the center sat the High King, father of Princess Illyra, his robe heavy with golden threads. His eyes were sharp, and his presence filled the room with quiet power. Aaron felt small under so many watchful gazes. He stood tall but could sense the tension around him. He had saved the city the day before, yet not all trusted him. The council whispered among themselves, some in favor, others against. One elder spoke first. His voice was strong but filled with suspicion. This human is dangerous. His ship came uninvited. He carries unknown tools. How do we know he is not a spy for his kind? Another noble, a tall man with blue markings on his face, added coldly. We should not thank him for saving the chamber. Perhaps he caused the fault to make himself appear useful. Aaron clenched his fists but remained calm. He had expected doubt. What mattered was how he answered. I did not come to harm anyone, he said firmly. I came because my ship was pulled here. If I wanted war, I would not have risked my life to save your people. The nobles murmured louder. Some still doubted him, but others looked thoughtful. Then Princess Illyra stepped forward. Her voice rose clear and steady. He speaks the truth. I watched him act without hesitation. No spy would risk death to save strangers. Aaron of Earth deserves our hearing, not our chains. Her words silenced the hall for a moment. The king studied his daughter, then turned his sharp gaze to Aaron. You claim honesty, human. You claim peace. If that is true, then you may remain under our watch. But know this one mistake, and your life will be forfeit. Aaron bowed his head slightly. I understand, High King. The council ended, but the air remained tense. As Aaron walked out, he could feel the eyes of the nobles burning into his back. He knew many would rather see him gone. Yet beside him walked Illyra, her steps calm, her presence steady. She had stood for him when others had not, and that gave him strength. Later that day, Illyra invited Aaron to walk through the city. She wanted him to see the world he had entered. They passed through tall bridges that arched over glowing rivers of energy. Towers of silver rose high, their surfaces alive with shifting light. The people stared as they walked. Some whispered, some frowned, and a few smiled with curiosity. Children ran close, their eyes wide. One boy pointed at Aaron's boots and laughed, as if they were strange armor. Illyra knelt down and told the children that Aaron came from far away, from a world with blue oceans and green forests. The children gasped and asked if the oceans were endless. Aaron smiled and told them stories of sailing ships and waves taller than houses. The children listened with shining eyes, forgetting their fear. But not everyone was pleased. At the edge of the crowd, a noble named Varys stood watching. His face was stern, and his markings glowed dark with anger. He was known to be ambitious, always pushing for stronger borders and less trust in outsiders. To him, Aaron was not a guest but a threat. He turned to the guards near him and whispered, "This human will bring danger. We must not allow him to win the princess's favor." That evening, Illyra brought Aaron to a small garden inside the palace. The trees glowed softly, their leaves shining with pale light. A gentle stream ran through, its water like silver. It was quiet, far from the noise of the council. "You did well today," Illyra said softly. "Many here do not trust you, but they cannot deny what you did for us. Still, you must be careful. Words can be sharper than blades in this palace." Aaron nodded. "I can feel the distrust. But I will not run. I came to learn, and I will prove myself with actions, not arguments." Illyra studied him for a moment, then asked, "Do all humans think as you do? Or are you different from your people?" Aaron thought carefully before answering. "Not all humans are the same. Some are afraid, some are proud, some are kind. I am only one man, but I believe trust is worth the risk. If we never reach out, then the stars will always keep us apart." Illyra's eyes softened. She seemed to see something in him that reminded her of hope. Before she could reply, a loud alarm rang across the city. Both turned quickly as the sound echoed through the palace walls. Guards rushed into the garden, shouting that a section of the city had lost power again. Aaron and Illyra followed the guards to the lower levels, where dozens of citizens were trapped in a transport chamber that had failed mid-travel. Sparks burst from the walls, and the chamber shook dangerously. Engineers worked frantically but could not stabilize it. Aaron stepped forward without waiting. He pulled his scanner and began working beside the engineers. They looked doubtful, but Illyra raised her hand and commanded, "Let him try." Together they worked quickly, Aaron guiding the flow of energy while the aliens reinforced the structure. At the last moment, Aaron rerouted the power through a backup coil he had built with spare parts from his ship. The chamber steadied, the doors opened, and the citizens rushed out safely. Cheers filled the hall, and for the first time, many eyes looked at Aaron with gratitude instead of suspicion. A child even ran forward and hugged his leg before being pulled back by her mother. But not all were pleased. Varys stood in the shadows, watching with narrowed eyes. Each time Aaron proved himself, Varys saw his own power weakening. He whispered to himself, "This cannot continue. If the princess defends him again, she may choose him over her own kind. That would bring shame to us all. Something must be done." That night, as the city rested, Aaron stood by the balcony of his guest quarters. The stars spread before him, endless and beautiful. Yet his thoughts were not on the stars but on the princess who had stood by him again and again. He did not understand why she trusted him, but he knew one thing clearly. He was no longer just a visitor. He was becoming part of something greater, and the path ahead would not be easy. In the shadows below, unseen by him, Varys spoke to a group of nobles. His voice was sharp, filled with warning. "If we do nothing, the human will take root in our world. He will gain power through the princess. We must act before it is too late." The others nodded grimly, and a secret plan began to form. Aaron had earned respect, but now he had also gained enemies. His welcome was far more dangerous than he had imagined. The days passed slowly for Aaron inside the great city of the Lumerous Empire. He had been allowed to move more freely, though always with guards nearby. Some citizens greeted him warmly after hearing of how he had saved the power chambers, but others kept their distance. His presence was like a spark, lighting both curiosity and suspicion. Princess Illyra visited often. She asked him about Earth, about human history, and about the ways of his people. In return, she shared the history of the Lumerous. Their empire stretched across many star systems. Their ships were strong, their cities beautiful, but their past was marked with trials. She told him of wars long ago when an ancient enemy had risen from the dark regions of space. This enemy was called the Veyron. They were not like humans or Lumerous. They were a shadow-born race that fed on fear and destruction. The Lumerous had fought them for centuries, sometimes winning, sometimes losing, but the threat had never fully ended. Many believed the Veyron would rise again. Illyra spoke of this with quiet sadness as they walked in the crystal gardens one evening. The glowing trees reflected her face, and her voice carried both pride and worry. "My people stand tall, yet we know danger waits beyond the stars. The Veyron will return one day. And when they do, I fear we may not be strong enough to fight them alone." Aaron listened carefully. He had never heard of the Veyron before, but he could see the fear they brought to her people. He thought of Earth, still young in space travel compared to the Lumerous. Yet he also thought of human determination, the will to survive, and the courage shown in times of hardship. "If that day comes," Aaron said firmly, "you will not be alone. I will stand with you, no matter the enemy." Illyra looked at him with surprise. Her eyes softened, and for a moment her royal mask faded, revealing the heart beneath. "You are only one man, Aaron of Earth. Yet your words bring me more comfort than the promises of many nobles." Before Aaron could reply, footsteps echoed nearby. Counselor Varys appeared, his face shadowed by the glow of the trees. He bowed quickly to Illyra but cast a sharp glance at Aaron. "Princess, the council meets tomorrow to discuss new defenses. We must not waste time with stories and strangers." Illyra's expression cooled, but she answered with grace. "Counselor, do not forget it was the stranger who saved us twice already. Perhaps his stories hold wisdom worth hearing." Varys bowed again but said nothing. His eyes, however, burned with unspoken anger before he turned and walked away. Aaron could feel the tension growing. Varys was not done, and sooner or later, he would strike. That night, Illyra brought Aaron to the royal archives, a vast chamber filled with floating crystals that stored the memories of the Lumerus. Only a few were allowed inside, but Illyra trusted him. She touched one of the glowing crystals, and it lit up, projecting images of battles across the walls. The Veyron appeared as dark shapes, their ships like massive claws tearing through space. The images showed cities falling, stars burning, and warriors standing in desperate defense. Illyra's voice was steady but heavy with sorrow. "My ancestors fought with all their strength. Many died, yet we endured. But the Veyron were never destroyed. They simply vanished into the void. Some believe they sleep, waiting to rise again. Others say they are already moving in the far reaches, gathering power." Aaron felt a chill. The images were terrifying, yet he also saw bravery in them. The Lumerus had stood firm against great odds, and that courage reminded him of the strength of humanity. He stepped closer to Illyra. "If the Veyron return, then your people must not face them alone. Earth may be small compared to your empire, but humans know how to fight for survival. Together, we could stand stronger." Illyra studied him with deep eyes. "Would your people help us? Even if it meant risking their own safety?" Aaron thought carefully. He could not promise for all of Earth, but he could speak for himself. "Some on Earth might fear to get involved. But I know many who would fight if they saw injustice. If I have a voice, I will speak for unity. That is what I can promise." Illyra smiled faintly, as if his words planted hope where fear had lived. She touched another crystal, showing a star map. Lines of light traced across the galaxy, marking old battles and forgotten routes. At the far edge, a dark region pulsed faintly. "Here," she whispered. "This is where the Veyron were last seen. Our scouts no longer go there. It is too dangerous. But I believe secrets hide in that darkness, secrets that may one day save or destroy us." Aaron studied the map. He felt a strange pull toward it, as if fate pointed his path there. He did not know why, but deep inside, he knew his journey with the Lumerus was only beginning. The next day, the council gathered again. Nobles argued about new defenses, about whether to trust humans, and about how to prepare for the future. Varys spoke loudly against Aaron, calling him a risk and a distraction. But Illyra defended him with calm strength. She told the council of his courage, of his quick mind, and of his willingness to help even when he gained nothing. Some nobles began to listen. Others remained doubtful. The debate grew heated, and at last the king raised his hand for silence. "This human has shown courage, yet courage is not enough. If he wishes to earn a place here, let him prove it not with words, but with action. A trial will be given. If he succeeds, he may stay. If he fails, he must leave our world." Aaron bowed his head. He did not fear the challenge. He knew action was the only way to truly prove himself. That night, as he prepared for what was to come, Illyra visited his chamber. She stood at the doorway, her robe flowing like silver water. "The trial will not be easy," she warned. It is meant to test your heart as much as your strength. Many want you gone, and they will hope for your failure. Aaron looked at her with steady eyes. I will face whatever comes. Not just for myself, but for the bond that grows between us. I will not let your people down. Illyra's expression softened, and she stepped closer. For a moment, the distance of royalty vanished, and she was simply a young woman who carried the weight of a nation on her shoulders. Then may the stars guide you, Aaron of Earth. For your path is no longer only your own. It is tied to mine now. Her words stayed with him as he lay awake that night, staring at the strange stars beyond his window. He had come into this world by accident, yet he felt more certain than ever that fate had led him here for a reason. The Varen were out there, waiting. The Lumerus needed hope. And somehow, he and Illyra were becoming part of a story far greater than either of them could imagine. The day of the trial arrived with heavy silence in the great city. The air itself seemed tense, as if the walls of crystal and silver knew what was about to happen. Aaron woke early and dressed in the simple clothes given to him by the palace. He stood before the mirror, not as a pilot from Earth, but as a man who was about to face judgment in a world not his own. Guards came for him and led him to the grand hall of trials. The chamber was shaped like a circle, with high arches and tall windows that let in the soft glow of the planet below. At the center stood the High King, flanked by counselors and nobles. Princess Illyra was beside him, her face calm but her eyes full of quiet worry. The king's voice echoed across the hall. Aaron of Earth, you have spoken of peace and trust, but words alone cannot bind nations. Today you will prove yourself. You must face the trial of trust, a test given to those who wish to stand with our people. Aaron stepped forward and bowed. I accept, Your Majesty. The king raised his hand, and the hall grew darker. The floor shimmered, and a great map appeared, showing a wild region of their planet. Storms of lightning circled above jagged mountains, and deep within lay a ruined temple of the Lumerus. In that place lies a relic of our ancestors, the king explained. It is called the Heartstone. Long ago it was left behind, for storms and beasts made the land too dangerous. Bring back the Heartstone, and you will prove your worth. A murmur spread among the nobles. Some whispered that no outsider could survive such a mission. Others watched with cold smiles, eager to see him fail. Illyra's voice broke the silence. Father, he cannot face this alone. Even our own warriors have fallen in those storms. But the king shook his head. A trial of trust must be faced by the one who seeks it. He will walk alone. Aaron's heart pounded, but he did not back down. He nodded firmly. I will go. I will return with the Heartstone. That evening, he was given only a small pack of supplies and a guiding crystal that showed the path. He boarded a small craft that carried him down to the storm-filled lands. As the craft descended, lightning tore across the sky, striking the mountains with deafening force. Aaron gripped the controls tightly, guiding the craft through the chaos until it landed on a rocky plain. The air outside was heavy and filled with energy. Each breath crackled in his chest, and the ground shook under the storm's weight. Aaron tightened his pack and began walking toward the temple in the distance. The path was harsh. Winds whipped against him, carrying dust and sparks. Strange creatures moved among the rocks, their eyes glowing in the dark. One beast leapt from a cliff, claws wide. Aaron rolled aside just in time, drawing a simple plasma cutter from his belt. The blade of light hummed as he swung, scaring the beast away. He was not a warrior by training, but survival taught him to move fast and think faster. Hours passed as he climbed cliffs and crossed rivers that boiled with strange energy. The guiding crystal led him forward, its glow steady. His body grew weary, but his mind stayed sharp. He thought of Illyra's eyes watching him, full of trust. That thought kept his steps strong. At last, he reached the ruined temple. The ancient structure stood broken among the mountains, its walls carved with symbols that glowed faintly even after centuries. Inside, the air was quiet, as if the storm itself feared to enter. At the center of the hall lay the Heartstone. It pulsed with blue light, resting on a pedestal of silver. Aaron stepped closer, but as his hand reached for it, the ground trembled. From the shadows emerged a guardian, a beast of stone and crystal. Its body was massive, its eyes glowing with fierce light. Aaron's heart raced. He knew this was the true test. He could not fight such a creature with strength alone. He studied its movements, noticing how its joints were weaker where crystal met stone. With quick thinking, he set a trap using the energy cells from his pack. He lured the beast toward him, then dove aside as the energy cells exploded in a burst of light. The blast cracked one of the creature's legs, and it stumbled. Aaron used the moment to rush forward, striking with his plasma cutter at the weak joint. The beast roared but collapsed, its glow fading into silence. Aaron stood panting, his body aching, but he was alive. Slowly, he stepped to the pedestal and lifted the Heartstone. Its light filled the hall, washing over him with warmth. He made the long journey back through the storm, carrying the relic close. By the time he reached the landing craft, his clothes were torn and his face marked with dust, but the stone still shone in his hands. When he returned to the great city, the council gathered again. The hall filled with gasps as Aaron stepped inside, holding the Heartstone high. Nobles who had doubted him now stared in silence. The High King rose slowly from his seat, his eyes wide with respect. "You have done what many of our own could not. You faced the storm and the Guardian, and you returned with the Heartstone. You have proven your courage, Aaron of Earth." The nobles bowed their heads. Even Varese, though his face was tight with anger, could not speak against what had been seen. Illyra's eyes shone with pride as she stepped forward. "You have done more than prove courage. You have shown that trust can be earned, even when hope is small." Aaron felt warmth rise in his chest. He looked at her, and for a brief moment the council faded away. It was only her eyes, steady and bright, that mattered. The king raised his hand. "From this day, you are welcome among us. You are no longer an outsider. You are a friend of the Lumerous Empire." The hall echoed with voices of agreement. Aaron bowed deeply, his heart filled with relief and pride. He had come as a stranger, tested by fear and danger, yet he had earned his place. But in the shadows, Varese whispered to another noble. His eyes were dark with schemes. "The human has won the trial, but this is not the end. If he grows closer to the princess, our world may change in ways we cannot allow. We must watch him carefully, and when the time is right, we will act." Aaron did not hear those words. He stood tall, holding the Heartstone, while Illyra smiled beside him. The trial of trust had ended, but a greater battle waited beyond the horizon, a battle that would decide not only his fate but the fate of two worlds. The city of the Lumerous glowed brightly that night in celebration of Aaron's success. Music rang across the halls, lights shimmered through the towers, and the people gathered in joy. Aaron was honored as a friend of the Empire, and the Heartstone was placed in the Hall of Ancestors as a symbol of hope. Yet beneath the joy, a shadow stirred. In the far regions of space, beyond the maps of the Lumerous, the Veyron moved once again. Their ships, dark and sharp like claws, cut through the void in silence. They had waited for centuries, hidden in the cold of forgotten systems, and now they rose with hunger in their hearts. The first signs came 2 days after the celebration. A scout ship of the Lumerus returned damaged, its hull torn and its crew pale with fear. They spoke of an ambush near the border stars, where black ships had descended upon them with ruthless power. Only by chance had they escaped. The council gathered quickly. Fear filled the chamber as the nobles whispered to one another. Some had doubted the return of the Veyron, but the truth could no longer be denied. The enemy had returned. The High King's voice was firm but heavy. Our borders are broken. The Veyron rise again. We must prepare to fight. Illyra's face was calm, though her eyes showed quiet worry. She looked at Aaron, who stood beside her. He could see the weight on her shoulders, the fear she carried for her people. Aaron stepped forward and spoke. If the Veyron are as dangerous as your records show, then you cannot face them alone. Let me help. I have studied human battle tactics. I can offer a new way to fight. The council grew restless. Some nobles shook their heads. Varese rose with anger in his voice. You dare offer advice to us? You are one man, from a small world. You cannot lead in a war against the Veyron. But Illyra raised her hand. Her voice was steady. He has proven himself in trial. He has shown courage and wisdom. If we dismiss him without listening, we may lose more than we know. The king watched in silence, then nodded slowly. Speak, Aaron of Earth. What would you do? Aaron stepped into the circle and began to explain. He spoke of human tactics, of using smaller ships in fast groups instead of relying only on the great war cruisers. He explained how traps could be laid in asteroid fields, how the enemy could be divided and weakened before striking directly. The nobles listened, some with doubt, others with interest. At last, the king spoke again. Your words carry sense. Very well. You will lead a small force in the first defense. If you succeed, your place among us will be sealed. If you fail, then your ideas die with you. Aaron bowed deeply. He knew the risk, but he also knew there was no choice. The Veyron would not wait. Soon after, Aaron prepared with a group of Lumerus warriors. Their ships were sleek and bright, shaped like wings of silver. They followed his plan, dividing into squads that hid among the asteroids near the border. Aaron's heart raced as he sat in the pilot's seat, the silence of space pressing on him. Then the darkness came. Dozens of Veyron ships appeared, their hulls black and jagged, their weapons glowing with cruel red light. They moved like predators, swift and merciless. Now, Aaron whispered, and the signal was sent. The Lumerus ships burst from hiding, striking fast and vanishing again. The Veyron turned to chase them, but the squads split apart, leading them into the asteroid fields. Mines planted earlier detonated, tearing through enemy ships. For the first time in centuries, the Veyron were caught off guard. Aaron's ship darted between the rocks, weaving through enemy fire. He used every skill he had learned as a pilot, pushing himself to the limit. He shouted commands to the squads, guiding them with quick changes and clever traps. One by one, the Veyron ships fell, though not without cost. Lumerus ships burned too, and Aaron felt each loss like a cut to his heart. In the middle of the battle, a message reached him. Illyra's voice came through, filled with urgency. Aaron, the enemy has broken through near the city. A warship moves toward us. I am trapped in the outer wing of the palace. Aaron's blood ran cold. Without thinking, he turned his ship away from the fight and sped toward the city. The squad leaders called for him, but he did not answer. His only thought was Illyria. The Veyron warship loomed ahead, massive and dark. It fired beams that tore through the outer defenses of the city. Aaron pushed his ship faster, weaving through enemy fire until he reached the palace wing. Smoke and fire burned across the silver towers. He saw Illyria on a balcony, surrounded by guards who fought desperately. Aaron landed his ship on the balcony, leaping out with his plasma cutter ready. Veyron soldiers, twisted figures of shadow and steel, advanced through the smoke. Aaron fought beside the guards, cutting through the enemy with swift strikes. His arms ached, his lungs burned, but he did not stop. At last, the final Veyron soldier fell. Silence returned, broken only by the crackle of fire. Illyria looked at him, her eyes wide with both fear and relief. "You came for me," she whispered. "I would cross any battlefield for you," Aaron answered, his voice rough but steady. Before more could be said, the warship above shifted, readying another strike. Aaron called his ship's weapons and fired at the weak points he had studied in battle. Explosions tore across the enemy vessel, and with one last blast, the warship broke apart in a storm of fire. The city was safe, at least for now. The people cheered as the enemy retreated into the void. The council declared Aaron a hero, his tactics praised for saving many lives. Even the king looked at him with pride, though he spoke with caution. "This battle is only the beginning. The Veyron will return stronger, and we must be ready." Illyria stood beside Aaron, her hand brushing against his for only a moment. No one else noticed, but Aaron felt the warmth of her touch. He had fought not only for the city but for her, and she knew it. Yet in the shadows of the council chamber, Varys watched silently. His jaw was tight, his eyes cold. He had seen how Illyria looked at Aaron, and he understood what it meant. To him, the human was no longer only a threat to politics but to the future of the throne itself. And Varys was not a man who accepted defeat. Aaron did not see him. He looked out at the stars beyond the city, knowing the fight was far from over. But in his heart, he also knew something had changed forever. The battle for the sky had been won, and his bond with Illyria had grown stronger than words could ever say. The days after the battle passed with heavy silence. The city repaired its broken towers, the people honored their fallen, and the council prepared for the next war. Yet in the midst of duty and fear, something else grew quietly. Aaron and Illyria began to find more time together, though they never spoke of what was in their hearts. Every morning, Illyria visited the gardens of the palace, a place of calm filled with glowing flowers and silver trees. The sky above was painted with two suns that rose together, and the air was always filled with soft music from hidden crystals. Aaron often walked with her there, away from the noise of the court. They spoke of simple things at first. She asked him about Earth, about its oceans, forests, and storms. He told her about the blue skies of his home, about the endless seas, about the sound of rain against glass. In return, she told him of her childhood among the towers, of the festivals in the streets, of the legends of her people. Yet each time their eyes met, words fell short. Something unspoken rested between them. One evening, as the sun set and the gardens glowed under soft light, Aaron stopped walking. His hands were tight at his side, his chest heavy with words he had carried for too long. Illyria noticed his silence and turned toward him. "Something troubles you," she said gently. Aaron took a breath, his voice low but steady. "I have faced battles and storms, but none have weighed on me as much as this. Illyra, I need to tell you something. Her heart raced, though her face remained calm. She stepped closer, waiting. Aaron's eyes held hers. I want to marry you, he whispered. The words hung in the air like a spark of fire. For a long moment, there was no sound. The garden itself seemed to listen. Illyra's lips parted, her eyes wide. No one had ever spoken to her like this, not as a princess, not as a symbol of the empire, but as a woman. She felt her breath catch as she looked at him, the man who had fought for her, who had stood at her side when even her own people doubted him. Her voice was soft, almost trembling, but filled with truth. My answer is yes. Aaron closed his eyes for a moment, his chest filled with warmth and relief. When he opened them, she was smiling, a smile that broke through all the weight of war and duty. He reached for her hand, and this time she did not pull away. Their fingers intertwined, and the world felt smaller, safer. But their moment of peace did not last. From the shadows of the garden, a figure stepped forward. It was Varys, his face dark with anger. So this is your plan, he said coldly. You seek not only our trust but our throne. You will take her from us, a human ruling beside our princess. Illyra's hand tightened around Aaron's, but she spoke firmly. I choose him, Varys. This is not a trick, nor a game. My heart is mine to give. Varys's jaw tightened, his pride wounded. You shame your people with this choice. The council will never allow it. Aaron stepped forward, his voice calm but strong. I do not seek the throne. I seek her. If your council fears love, then it is not a council of wisdom but of chains. Varys's eyes narrowed, but before he could answer, the sound of alarms filled the night. Red light flashed across the city, and voices cried through the halls. The Veyron had returned. The three of them rushed from the garden. In the skies above, black ships descended once more, larger and fiercer than before. The people ran for safety as the defenses lit up the heavens with fire. The council gathered in the war hall. The High King's voice boomed across the chamber. They strike sooner than we feared. Aaron, you brought us victory before. Will you guide us again? Aaron looked at Illyra, her eyes filled with both fear and trust. He turned back to the king. I will fight. But this time, we cannot only defend. We must strike at their heart, or they will never stop. The hall filled with whispers. Some agreed, some protested, but the king raised his hand. Speak your plan. Aaron spread a star map across the table. The Veyron ships move from this sector. They must have a command vessel, hidden in the dark fields here. If we strike it, the rest will scatter. It is dangerous, but it may be our only chance. The king studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Very well. You will lead the fleet. If you succeed, you may save us all. If you fail, our empire may fall. Varys stepped forward, his voice sharp. And if he survives, he will return as more than a hero. He will return as the one who holds our princess's heart. The words cut through the chamber. Eyes turned to Illyra, but she stood tall. I do not hide my choice. If Aaron returns, he returns to me. The king's face was unreadable, but he said nothing more. The decision was made. That night, before the fleet prepared to leave, Aaron stood once more in the garden with Illyra. The stars above were bright, though heavy clouds of war hung around them. She stepped close, her hand resting on his chest. Do not let this be our last night, she whispered. He held her close for a brief moment, the world falling away. I will return. I promise you. The fleet moved silently through the stars, guided by Aaron's careful planning. Every ship glowed like silver against the dark void, a small army prepared to meet an enemy older than time. The Varen had gathered their forces, black ships forming jagged lines that seemed to stretch endlessly. Aaron's hands gripped the controls of his own vessel, his eyes steady, though his heart beat like a drum. Beside him, his squadron followed, each pilot trusting his commands. They had trained and fought together, but the weight of this battle was heavier than anything they had faced before. He thought of Illyra, her quiet strength, her faith in him. That thought steadied him more than any strategy or weapon ever could. Form the attack pattern, Aaron said. Lead them toward the asteroid field. Use the mines. Force the command vessel forward. The squadron moved with precision, the luminous ships darting like silver arrows. The Varen responded with fire, red beams tearing through space. Explosions lit the darkness, and the sounds of battle filled the fleet's communication channels. Aaron guided his ship with careful skill. He weaved through fire and debris, firing at enemy ships that threatened his squadron. Each strike was calculated, each maneuver measured. Slowly, the Varen were drawn toward the asteroid field Aaron had chosen. The command vessel loomed ahead, massive and black, its shape like a jagged claw. It moved with purpose, unaware of the traps waiting for it. Aaron's squadron circled around, detonating the mines he had planted. Explosions erupted, tearing through the front lines of the Varen fleet. Their ships faltered, confused by the sudden loss of formation. Now, Aaron shouted. Focus fire on the command vessel. Disable their engines. A concentrated barrage hit the warship. Sparks flew across its hull, systems malfunctioned, and the vessel slowed. Aaron led the final charge, flying straight at the enemy's weak point. His plasma cutter was ready, his courage unwavering. Inside the warship, Varen soldiers scrambled to repair the damage, but Aaron and his team struck with precision. He blasted the engine core, causing the command vessel to shake violently. It reeled, then exploded in a massive burst of fire. The remaining ships panicked, scattering into the darkness of space. The battle was won, but the cost was high. Many numerous ships had fallen, and the fleet was scarred by fire and debris. Aaron guided the survivors back to the city, weary but alive. When they returned, the city erupted in cheers. Citizens poured into the streets, waving banners and calling the names of their heroes. The High King met Aaron at the landing platform. His face was tired, lined with the weight of leadership, but his eyes held respect. You have done what many thought impossible, the king said. You saved our people and struck fear into the hearts of the Varen. The Lumerous owe you a debt that cannot be measured. Aaron bowed respectfully. I only did what was necessary. I fight for those who trust me, and for those I care about. Illyra stepped forward, her eyes bright with pride and relief. She reached out and took Aaron's hand, holding it tightly. The people around them seemed to fade as their hands intertwined. You have returned to me, she said softly. And with your courage, you have given hope to all of us. Aaron smiled, feeling the weight of the battle fall away. I promised I would return, he said. And I always keep my promises. The king gestured toward the council. You have earned your place among us, Aaron of Earth. You are not only a friend but a hero of the Lumerous Empire. The council and I agree that you may remain here freely. Varys stood in the shadows, his face dark with frustration. Yet even he could not speak against the evidence of victory. He bowed stiffly and stepped back, knowing the council's decision was final. Illyrio led Eren through the city, showing him the rebuilding that had begun after the battle. Citizens cheered, waving to the man who had saved them from extinction. Children ran to greet him, their eyes shining with admiration. For the first time, Eren felt the full weight of being not just a visitor, but part of this world. That evening, in the palace gardens where their bond had first deepened, Eren and Illyrio walked together under the twin suns now setting in a quiet sky. The flowers glowed softly, and the water of the silver streams reflected their faces. Illyrio stopped and looked at him. The battle is over, and the people are safe. But our lives are more than war. Eren, you risked everything for me and for my people. Tell me truly, do you wish to remain here, not as a stranger, but as someone who belongs? Eren took her hands in his, feeling the warmth of her skin, the quiet strength in her gaze. My heart is yours, he said firmly. I do not belong anywhere else. I have faced fear, storms, and enemies beyond imagination, but the greatest truth I have learned is that life is worth living with those you care for. I want to marry you, Illyrio, not as a hero or a stranger, but as a man who loves you. Tears formed in Illyrio's eyes, soft but filled with joy. She pressed her forehead to his, letting the silence speak for the love they had kept hidden. My answer is yes, she whispered, her voice trembling with happiness. Yes, I will marry you. A soft breeze stirred the glowing leaves of the garden. The stars above seemed to shine brighter, as if the universe itself celebrated their union. The following days were filled with preparations. The city honored Eren not only as a warrior but as a man who had earned the trust and love of its princess. The High King gave his blessing, and even the council came to respect Eren for his courage and wisdom. The people of the Luminous celebrated as though a new dawn had arrived. On the day of their wedding, the city shone like a jewel. Citizens from all corners of the empire gathered. The palace gardens were decorated with luminous flowers, and the rivers of light reflected their joyous faces. Eren stood tall, dressed simply but with the pride of one who had fought for what mattered most. Illyrio walked toward him, her robe flowing like silver water. Her eyes shone with love and hope. As they joined hands before the High King, the crowd hushed in reverence. The ceremony was simple yet filled with meaning, a union not just of two hearts, but of trust, courage, and the promise of a shared future. When the vows were exchanged, the people erupted in cheers. Eren and Illyrio looked at one another, smiles wide, hearts full. The weight of battles, trials, and fear had been lifted. Now, together, they could face any future, any challenge, and any star that the universe sent their way. In that moment, Eren realized something he had known all along. Courage had brought him here, love had made him stay, and trust had given him a home among the stars. With Illyrio by his side, he knew they could face anything, and that the human spirit and the luminous heart had together created something stronger than either could alone. The city of the luminous sparkled under the twin suns and distant stars, a testament to hope, bravery, and the enduring power of love. Eren and Illyrio walked hand in hand through the palace gardens, ready to build a life not only as heroes but as partners, leaders, and dreamers of a future where the stars belonged to those who dared to reach for them.